What if I told you that entire armies fought over a bucket? Yeah, you heard that right. Or how about a war over a pig? How is that even possible? No, this isn't a joke. These are real wars that happen for the most absurd reasons. And you won't believe how this could have happened. Hold on tight because we're just getting started. The War Over the Bucket. Let's go back to the year 1325 to Italy. At that time, two cities, Bologna and Modena, weren't just neighbors, they were fierce rivals. And as often happens, a small conflict that could have easily been settled in the kitchen turned into a full-blown war. The battle over the stolen bucket was one of the armed conflicts during the long-standing rivalry between the Guelphs and Ghibellines. This episode led to the deaths of more than 2,000 people. In 1325, one fine day, a few soldiers from Modena snuck into Bologna. In the city center, near the San Felice gates, there was a well and a bucket. The soldiers stole the bucket, then returned to their city and proudly displayed it there. The enraged citizens of Bologna demanded the return of the bucket, which had no historical or other value. They were offended by the mere fact that it had been stolen. Modena refused. What do you think happened next? That's right. Bologna decided that such things couldn't go unpunished and declared war. Now imagine this. The politicians of both cities begin raising armies. Modena and Bologna mobilize thousands of soldiers, and a real war begins. The war over the oak bucket started on the morning of November 15th, 1325. The battle that took place at the foot of a hill just outside the castle walls became one of the greatest battles of the Middle Ages. About 35,000 infantry and 4,000 knights participated. After the bloody battle, more than 2,000 people lay dead on the battlefield. Despite the fact that the number of soldiers from Bologna far exceeded the enemy forces, the short and intense military actions ended in their tragic defeat and a victory for Modena. So, what do you think the outcome of this war was? Well, of course, the bucket was never returned. Modena, despite its victory, suffered heavy losses and even lost part of its territory. Since then, the bucket has been displayed as a relic in Modena. However, the bucket that's on display today is just a replica of the one that started the war. So, if you ever find a bucket, please just return it. Now hit that like button and let's move on. The War Over the Pig, 1859. On the border between two countries, something happens that could be the plot of the most absurd joke. A war that almost led to a global conflict started over a pig. Seriously, think about it. War, hundreds of casualties, destruction, all because of one pig. But it's not that simple. It all began on the border between the USA and Great Britain. More specifically, on San Juan Island, which was in dispute between the two countries. In this story, there's not only a pig, but also maps that change borders and principles that could lead to an international conflict. So, on one side of the island, the British set up a farm, while on the other side, American settlers grew potatoes. One day, American farmer Lyman Cattler shot a pig that was eating their potatoes. It belonged to a British settler, but he refused to pay compensation for it. Here's your hero of the story. In response, the British authorities demanded that Cattler be arrested, while the Americans insisted on defending him. So the war over the pig starts to escalate. The Americans, of course, refuse to compensate because, well, who pays for a pig that was just eating potatoes? Meanwhile, the British insist on their rights, raising the issue of territorial borders being violated. Now imagine this. The US Army and British forces start setting up camp on the island. Each of them believes the island belongs to them. They begin arming their positions, and the tension between them grows. Military ships and soldiers from both sides are sent to the island. Soon, there are about 500 Americans and 2,000 British there. The situation rapidly escalates, and both sides await decisions from their governments. Fortunately, not everything ended in disaster. And here comes the true hero of the story, General Winfield Scott, an American military leader. He was clearly smart enough to understand that a war over a pig was, to put it mildly, ridiculous. Instead of continuing the argument, General Scott proposed a peaceful agreement with the British. They agreed to submit the issue to an arbitrator, and in the end, both sides stayed on the island. The pig, by the way, was never returned. But fortunately, the war never started. In 1871, the Washington Convention was signed, which assigned the dispute to German Emperor Wilhelm I as the arbitrator, who ruled in favor of the U.S. The British agreed to this decision and evacuated their troops from the island. Thus ended the long-standing Anglo-American confrontation on San Juan Island, with the only casualty being the pig. So friends, what can we learn from this story? A pig is not a reason for war, but common sense and wisdom are always the best choice. Now, do you want to hear more stories about how one tiny detail can lead to a huge conflict? Hit that like button if you want the next part, and don't forget to subscribe. Share this video with your friends. Let them know how a pig almost started a war.